This episode of SESSLER'S Something is brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. All right, everyone. Man, there is one kind of question topic that I've been receiving a lot of in the past week or two, and it's my thoughts on Nintendo. About 2 weeks ago now, I can't remember exactly when this is airing versus when I'm taping it, they kind of warned their investors, hey, our goals, we didn't exactly reach them. Just recently, in the past week, they really put out the numbers. And while I have been one to question how on earth Nintendo thought, I think back in March, that they were somehow going to pick up 9 million sales of the Wii U, they fell dramatically short of that, just kind of cracking 5 million worldwide. That obviously is not very good news, and there's a lot of discussion about what this means for Nintendo. In the short term, Iwata has chosen to take a 50% pay cut. Miyamoto and some other executives are taking a 20% cut. There's a lot of contrition going around and acknowledgement that things aren't exactly working out, despite the fact that software sales were quite strong. If you compare how many Wii U's there are versus, a million plus copies of Mario sold, that's a really good attach rate. The problem is it's attaching to a very small installed base of consoles, and it doesn't really kind of show enough growth that everything can improve down the line. So what does this mean for Nintendo? I'm still of the mind that they need to have a huge management shift and that they really should be exploring taking their classic games and moving them over to mobile devices. And that's really more of a financial thing, but they could make a ridiculous sum of money playing classic NES games on an iPhone or an iPad or a Kindle or a Friend. I don't know what the other ones are called. That would just be fun. It makes sense. That type of game design from those classic days really does transfer quite comfortably over to how we play games on mobile devices. It looks like Nintendo is not going to do it. And a lot of my frustration with the company, and I'll reiterate this again, I love Nintendo. It's why I started this job. And so sometimes I get frustrated seeing something I have such affection for make decisions that strike me as so blatantly obvious as not to be made. But that Nintendo is a very old Japanese company. And Japanese business is very distinct from American business. It's not as reactive. Shareholders and the behavior of shareholders are quite distinct between the US and Japan. And what really can happen is the company's decision-making becomes very, very insular. Yes, they are probably aware of what's happening in the larger video game marketplace, but they are Nintendo, and they are just kind of beholden to sort of the way that they do things. And I think that's what brought us the Wii U gamepad. That this need to have a demonstrable piece of innovation, despite the fact that there really is no software that really highlights the value of this innovation. And I think that the short-term prospects for Nintendo are very, very challenging. They have the Wii U. I really don't know. They can't make a new console out of nowhere. I think the best decision they could make is they have 5.5 million people who have bought a Wii U. Most of these are probably very dedicated Nintendo fans. What will get people more energized about Nintendo again? More Nintendo games. But I am least of the mind that many of these Nintendo games are undermined by how kind of awkward you can use the gamepad to control the games. I know there's the Pro controller, which I think is equally as awkward, just slightly better. I think a brand new controller, one that is more in step with what controllers for the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, or even the Sega Saturn, something like that allows for more traditional game design will really facilitate more traditional, rich Nintendo games to be made and to come on the device. They need to really focus on that core Nintendo group and stop chasing after, in the short term, all the casual gamers that made the original Wii such a success. Problem is, that just can't happen overnight, and it makes me wonder if perhaps just kind of recognizing that the Wii U is not a success, as Sega had to do both with the Dreamcast and the Saturn, let it kind of continue for a little bit, but really start looking at what the next step is. And ideally, it is a console that can be the second console to the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox One, something that is cheaper in price, that will always make those Nintendo games available, and is not at the outset trying to chase after that casual audience. The success of the Wii, we now can say, was a brilliant anomaly and not some kind of boilerplate roadmap for success. And probably the other thing Nintendo needs to do, they need to make a console they are not losing money on, because I think it's still going to be a long, hard road for where they have to go. Long term, further out there, I know they're talking about trying to get Nintendo things into stores. I know they've been very protective about the Mario and Zelda and all those kind of famous images that they have, they probably still need to make some money on the back end to help weather this rather bad period. But I do actually respect their desire to not want to make Mario so ubiquitous as what Disney did with Mickey Mouse back in the 1980s, where everyone's like, yeah, he looks kind of, he's everywhere. The interesting thing they said, and their commitment to somehow still doing things the Nintendo way, which I think they really need to break from, they start talking about how they want to kind of look at health with the Wii U further down the line. And I think that's admirable. But it really belies some of the issues of Nintendo's thinking. For that health plan to work, you need to have an install base of the original Wii, not what the Wii U has. You need to get the console into the home on the back of the gamer and then let it be discovered for other activities by other members of the household that aren't that hardcore. They're not on that path just yet, and trying to kind of use that goal of the health application down the line doesn't sound like a silver bullet. It kind of sounds like magical thinking. In fact, that probably is, unfortunately, the best way to categorize this entire misadventure with the Wii U. I still think there's going to be some good games coming down the line. The improving software lineup and the sales success of the 3DS show that they can get themselves out of this situation. But right now, with things looking just kind of challenging for Nintendo, I think something pragmatic and something realistic, which in the long run is about as contrary to the nature of their games as anything could be. All right, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor. Now, as you know, I grow a beard because what's available up on top, it's about as compelling as a rerun of Cops. So I need to shave it to maintain that perfect, this is how I'm meant to look vibe. But that requires razors, going to the store, and buying something that looks like it was designed by H.R. Geiger. So instead, I start growing fluffy baby chicken peach fuzz on my scalp, and everyone mocks me. That's where Dollar Shave Club comes in. For a few bucks a month, Dollar Shave Club ships amazing razors and other bathroom stuff right to your door. Their blades are just as good as the big shave companies at a fraction of the price. They've also got Dr. Carver's Easy Shave Butter and One Wipe Charlie's. That's all you need for shaving, but there's even more, and it's delivered to your home. Go to dollarshaveclub.com/Sessler to learn more. All right, I'm going to do some questions because this has actually been a slow news period. And so, yay, questions, why not? This is from Jeffrey. What's your take on the net neutrality now that the government screwed the ruling? I have very strong feelings on net neutrality. Of course, I deeply believe in net neutrality, and it was obviously very frustrating to see a ruling from an appellate court, not the Supreme Court, that kind of threw out the FCC regulation that's trying to impose the sense that you can't kind of pick and choose what service and what ISPs get superior bandwidth. The thing is, it was a far more nuanced ruling than a lot of people are reacting to. What the court said was the issue was not the spirit of what the FCC was attempting to do. In fact, if you really read it, they agree with what the FCC is trying to do. It's the way the FCC tried to categorize what ISPs are, what the internet providers are, was incorrect for the type of regulation they were trying to impose. In fact, if you read that ruling, you can almost see the court saying, hey, if you do it this way, it's probably going to work. And as of today, it looks like the FCC is trying to find another means to do this regulation, even if that's going to require the very challenging work of going after internet companies that are trying to somehow sort of sabotage the bandwidth for certain types of content providers. I think this is something people have to be very vigilant on. And guys, it's 2014. This is an election year. One good way to really get this conversation going, figure out who your representative is, both on the state and on the federal level, and figure out where they stand on this matter. You make your voice heard. This is something that definitely is of interest to a younger, not completely younger, but to a young demographic. This can really help kind of shape that debate. This is a very excellent idea of sort of people power. So like I said, check it out and let them know that this is something that's very important to you when you make your decision in November.